Mobility is a crucial part of cities because it's how we get around. It's how we get to work, how we get to the shop, how we see the people that we care about. And so understanding how the mobility system is created and seeing who it benefits and who it doesn't is essential to ensuring that a city is equitable, that people can get around in the way that matters to them, and to ensure that they can make those connections that are key to them in their lives. I'm Paris Marx, I'm an author and journalist, and I'm rethinking the future of mobility by researching its past and present and the problems with how tech companies are approaching how it should work. Transportation shapes society in many important ways. So if you have a transportation system that's based around cycling or based around public transit, in many cases, people will be closer together. Businesses and homes will be closer together. And so when we think about how to build our transportation system, it's not just about how we get around, but it's about how we build cities as well, where we're located, where businesses are, where we go shopping, and just how we live among one another. Over the past decade or so, the tech companies have told us again and again that they were disrupting transportation, that they were going to significantly alter the transportation system and solve many of the problems that exist. And sure, electric vehicles are becoming more common. Many people use ride-hailing services. Self-driving cars are still dangled in front of us as something that's coming in the near future. And micromobility services have dropped scooters and bikes on sidewalks in many cities around the world. But has that really changed the fundamentals of the transportation system? I would argue that it hasn't. Electric cars play an important role in reducing the climate impact of the transportation system, but they're not the exclusive solution. They're still very energy and resource intensive. In order to create an electric car, a lot of minerals need to be mined, and much of that will continue to happen in the global south. And those mines have incredible environmental and health impacts in the places that they exist. And so while they are part of the solution, they can't be the whole solution. And that's why we need to be focused on getting people out of cars, not just replacing every car that exists with an electric equivalent. The tech companies' mobility solutions promise us that we don't need to deal with the difficult politics of mobility. Instead, they say that all we need is some new technologies to add to that transportation system, and then that will solve traffic congestion, that will solve road deaths, that will solve the contribution to climate change made by our transportation systems. But what we can see after this decades-long experiment is that what we actually need to solve these problems is political action and political will, and just relying on technologies alone will not deliver the benefits that we need. If we're thinking about what's going to solve the problems with the mobility system as it exists today, it's not going to be new technologies that make it easier for us to hail a taxi or the prospect of computers driving our cars for us, but rather having government step in and taking the actions that are really necessary to address these things. So making major investments in the public transit system to make that more reliable, more frequent for people, to make it more accessible. Making investments in cycling infrastructure so that people can get around on a bike and not fear that they're going to get run over by a car in the process. And also that they can park that bike safely and not have to worry that it's going to get stolen. So these are really key pieces of what a better mobility system looks like. Taking space from cars and ultimately reallocating it to other forms of mobility and putting the investment in that direction as well to encourage people to get around in those ways. There have been several moments where we could have taken a different path, where we could have started to reorient mobility policy in a very different way. And once again, we're offered another opportunity. As gas prices and energy prices are going through the roof once again, we have another chance to see that placing so much focus on the automobile, and even now the electric automobile, is not the way that we solve our mobility problems, but rather it's time to invest in transit, in cycling, in walkable cities to get people out of cars altogether. So when we take these actions, we need to ensure that they're equitable. We need to ensure that the people who should be benefiting from better transit services, from better cycling infrastructure, are getting those benefits instead of being priced out because of a private housing system that is not controlled and that we don't ensure is equitable. So the mobility system is one piece of this, but we also need to pay attention to how it's in conversation with other systems within the city to ensure that the policies that we take to improve transportation are equitable for everyone and not just the people who can afford to live in the areas where those improvements are made.